When I first uploaded this video last year, I had about 400 subscribers, which means that YouTube don't really give you any help in promotion or pushing your video into an audience. So it was up to me to get recommendations and shares and get people to watch it. Anyway, now that I've got a couple thousand more subscribers, YouTube do give you a little bit of help in pushing it and promotion. So I've re-uploaded this one in the hope that it gets to a wider audience than I think it deserves. So please enjoy. Last time I was around here, I did Secrets of Sukhumvit, and I only really scratched the surface. This time we're going to look at the area in a lot more detail. So let's roll back the years and look at 5 decades of Nana. 50 years ago is when Mr. Nana decided he was going to buy up a lot of cheap land around here and become known as the Godfather of Sukhumvit. He was already a renowned politician, businessman, philanthropist. Nana passed away in 2010, but leave no doubt his name's going to live on well into the future. Sukhumvit Soi 4 is famous for a lot of things. At one end you've got the Thai tobacco monopoly, but it's this end that really grabs the headlines, and of course Nana Plaza. In the old days this was just a shopping plaza. It had 2 restaurants, 2 tailor shops and a pharmacy. And then it was 1982 that the first 3 bars opened in this corner of the plaza. They were Rosemary's, 3 Roses and Rainbow. Throughout the 1980s a lot of bars came and went, but by 1989 the place was so well known and popular that Lonely Planet listed it in their guide to Bangkok nightlife. And it wouldn't be one of my videos without a bit of interesting history. Longest running business in the whole place, Lucky Luke's, has been serving drinks for almost 40 years, and it's still the best place for a bit of people watching in the whole of Nana Plaza. So that's our look around the world famous Nana Plaza. First and foremost, I've got to thank the security and all the staff in there for putting up with me for the last couple of days. And then there's Chris, the lollipop man, without whom none of this would be possible, so a big thank you there as well. I'm off to check the latest Lonely Planet to see if Nana Plaza is still listed. Of course, this wouldn't be a video about Nana without me mentioning the Thermae coffee shop and bar. It's been an institution around here for almost 60 years. Originally it was just a massage spa and barbers a few doors up the road. Very popular with visiting GIs during the Vietnam War. It moved to this premises in 1996. Since then its reputation has grown and grown into the kind of place where you can come and get a beer and a lot more after midnight. From doing my research, an honourable mention must go to a place called Clinton Entertainment Plaza and Night Market, which was down about there somewhere. Clearly a nod towards saxophone playing ex-US President Bill Clinton. Places like Monica's, the White House and Bill's Coffee Shop, plus many more, kept customers entertained for almost 5 years. The wrecking ball came in 2003 and the site is now occupied by the Sofitel Hotel.
To be perfectly honest, the clientele at the Golden Palace Hotel was not my cup of tea. The typical guest profile would be a single old grumpy European guy with tattoos who chain smokes. Lots of so-called old hands seem to stay here. This place is ancient by Bangkok standards, having been built in the early 1960s. On the downside, the rooms are gloomy and old-fashioned. However, if you're a fan of original vintage style, you'll appreciate the ambience. The shower and plumbing, however, were nearly useless. Price of around 1,500 baht was reasonable, and the staff were helpful and pleasant.
Soi 3 is a main thoroughfare from Phetchaburi Road to Sukhumvit. It starts off going over the Klong San Sep, it goes past a few hotels, the Pakistani embassy, a lot of Middle Eastern restaurants, the Grace Hotel, which we'll come to later, and apart from that, not much to report. Cheap Charlie's was an icon along Soi 11, and in the old days it was about there. It was the kind of place you came to after work or before you went clubbing. Cheap drinks and cocktails, toilet facilities left a lot to be desired. I just asked the bike to take me to Q-Bar and he didn't know what I was on about. Q-Bar, of course, was one of the heavyweights on the international clubbing scene of Bangkok. We're going to have a word with a guy who used to run Q-Bar with his partner. His name is Andrew Clark, and I caught up with him face to face at Jay's Bar and Caf in Prakanong. I wanted to ask you a little bit about the background to Q-Bar. First place really to bring international DJs in.
When we opened in 1999, there wasn't really much going on in the international music scene. David Jacobson, who asked me to join him to open up Q-Bar Bangkok, we intended it to be a lounge, but on opening night the DJs turned into a nightclub, and shortly after that we started bringing in international DJs, and we got a good reputation, and it basically put Bangkok on the international DJ map.
Soi 11, in those days when you opened, what else was there?
There was nothing there. You know, that's one of the reasons we picked it. It was a shortcut for taxis, so you could always get a taxi. People thought we were nuts opening up there, but it was a place you could get to from all directions on the map. It was a bit set back from the main street, so we could do our own thing. Not too residential, so we could play the music loud. we had some great resident DJs that had the connections and put Q-Bar, placed Q-Bar as the nightclub it was, and it worked really, really well. We had Billy V, DJ Octo, Joki, Ofe, and many more residents. Kimball Collins and many more after that.
Yeah.
And Darren Mack. Yes.
When Bed Supper Club popped up, did you have any reason to sort of doubt your clientele?
After they opened, our business increased. And we worked together. We actually had shared DJ events and stuff. They're very creative. They went overboard quite often, but it just made more of the appeal for Soi 11.
So before you opened Cuba, where were you clubbing in Bangkok? That you thought there's a niche here for a place like Cuba?
Well, I mean, that was a problem. Like there weren't many places to go to. We spent a lot of time at Tapas and Silam Soi 4. They're the first place to have really good music, international music. Tapas was a place that we kept going back to. There's the time I tackled a guy who ended up having a gun on him, and he was so surprised that he just left. He didn't do anything. Christopher Moore wrote a book where somebody was shot in our parking lot, I think. What many people don't know is that I did actually have another bar in Bangkok before Q-Bar, which was called another bar in Soi Zero, which at that time was known as Buckskin Joe Village. 1992, it was a hobby.
Soi 7 used to be a lot busier in the old days. There used to be a few bars and pubs on the left that are completely different to the complex that's been built there now, although the beer garden and the German beer house are still there. Park Hotel looks like it's shut down. On the corner of Sukhumvit used to be the 7 Plaza. It was a night market that pretty much sold all the same things that you can see sold along the pavement at the moment, and in a couple of years that's going to be a brand new condo. So what eventually became Soi Zero actually originated on this side of Sukhumvit Road. A couple of food stalls became a couple of beer shacks. Those beer shacks evolved into a row of wooden ramshackle beer bars that backed onto this railway track. I was reading stories about beer bottles clanking as trains rumbled by, short time rooms overlooking dirty, filthy canals, sexy beer maidens topping up your glass with ice as you sat there sweating in the Sukhumvit nights. Sounds like a great night out. This area has been given many names over the years, the most popular ones being Soi Zero and Buckskin Joe's Village. I met with two ex-bar owners to find out why and how these names came about. I read online that Soi Zero came about when someone was having a conversation. What do we call it? Well, Soi Zero, you couldn't get much lower.
Couldn't get much lower. It's the big
somewhere to get pissed. Yeah.
good point. You know, the end of Sukhumvit, the beginning of Plunget, the edge of whatever you want to call it. Soi 4, Soi 2, Soi Zero was the logical thing to do, we thought.
Yeah.
I think it can be interpreted many different ways. Bernard Trink did as well, actually pointed out in his column that it's, zero means nothing and it's bad negative connotation.
Yeah.
We looked at it a bit more positively. I don't think he came around very often, but he was always very, was always very supportive when we had an event on. I faxed him at the time. We faxed the Bangkok Post and said, we have an anniversary party or a birthday party, would you mind mentioning it in your column? And most of the time he did. So absolutely no complaints about it. As you said, rest his soul. It kicked off sort of late 80s, I think it was 1988, so slightly before my time. And it started as a small shack where somebody thought put a couple of chairs and tables on the side of the road and start selling beers and soft drinks and what have you not. I guess other people saw that it was catching on and it grew from there. Somebody rented the land wholesale off the Bangkok Expressway Authority and then was supposed to rent it out for tourism-related businesses. And then he moved into, sort of renting it out to bars. The police, the Bangkok Expressway wasn't very happy with that. And, sort of the final result was basically all the bars had to move out. We were told at the beginning of 2006, and by the 31st of May, that's when the bulldozers came in and tore everything down. It was a very surreal kind of place, right next to the train tracks, underneath an expressway, next to Sukhumvit. It was the sort of the quintessential place to come across some very strange characters on the, in terms of humans.
So you no idea who Buckskin Joe is?
I'm afraid I don't. That's a good question. That's a really, really, really pertinent question to ask. I honestly don't know.
Someone will somewhere. One question I asked Bob, and he didn't know, was who the hell was Buckskin Joe?
You know what? I think they had found this really cool sign in a secondhand shop somewhere, which then they decided to use it. It's like an old Buckskin Joe. Oh. There's this guy is a neon sign with this guy on a horse bronking bonko with waving his hat in the air and it lit up at night. And it's just a really cool sign that there's no way they would have made it for that place. So I think they just found a really cool sign and named it after that.
So that's our look around Soi Zero, or rather what's left of it. But as I stand here looking around this area, I can't help thinking that I've missed something. Maybe you're thinking the same. At the entrance to Soi Zero, there was a lawyer's office.
Yeah, I remember that. No, I remember that. It was the only air-conditioned place in that whole strip. Is right at the front. And it was probably a brilliant idea. I mean, that's where Soi Zero was a place for where the expats hung out, or the long-term tourists. So it was probably a good market for people in trouble. Divorces, marriages, visas. It's probably a well-positioned shop. I remember that.
The success of Soi Zero gave way to the Sukhumvit One Plaza, which used to be right behind me. It offered 3 floors of entertainment, beer bars, pool bars and sports bars, and opened in 2004. It lasted till 2007 and was demolished On the site now is a fish market. You probably know this area along here as being Art Box. Anyway, Art Box is closed and it's back to being Chewett Park. Anyway, there's a long story as to how it became Chewett Park, and if you bear with me a couple of minutes, I'll try and tell you the whole tale. In the late 1990s, this was just another nondescript scrap of land where shop houses had been demolished. A couple of small bars moved onto that land and took their chances. Within a couple of years, it had become a fully fledged entertainment zone known as Sukhumvit Square. Then one night in January 2003, it all came crashing down.
ราวตี 4 ของ 26 มกราคม 2546 กลุ่มชายชะกันเกือบ 400 คนบุกเข้ารื้อค้นและนำรถแบ็คโฮเข้ารื้อถอนสิ่งปลูกสร้างจนราบเป็นหน้ากรองคดีนี้กลายเป็นข่าวใหญ่และแจ้งเกิดชื่อของนายชูวิทย์ กมลวิสิทธิ์
In Thailand, all the thing is corruption. Under table, you know, they pay under table. We call that the corruption.
Soi 3/1, also known as Soi Arab. If you look at the people, the businesses, the shops and the restaurants, that's pretty self-explanatory. At the moment it's very quiet due to the economic situation, but if you rewind a year ago, this was the place to come if you wanted a fine Arabic spread with all the trimmings. I used to come here quite a lot and visit Al Hussein restaurant, and I think at the moment they're still doing takeaway. Soi 5, what is it famous for? Well, in the old days, if you came into Soi 5 and turned right, there was an alleyway that took you onto Soi 7. Foodland, if you want an American breakfast at 3 o'clock in the morning. When I first came to Bangkok, that American breakfast was just 37 baht. I think it's doubled by now. Amari Boulevard Hotel once brought a bit of class to Soi 5, not anymore because you got the Royal Benja at the very end. Side entrance to Grace Hotel just before that, and if you take a right at the Royal Benja, it gets you around onto Soi 7. As you can see, there's not a lot down Soi 9, and I've never seen a car drive down here in all the years I've been walking past. Apart from a bit of graffiti on the walls, a few rats and cats, this is mainly the place where motorbike taxi drivers and stall holders along Sukhumvit Road come and take a piss, and it certainly smells like it. In the 1960s, Bangkok was undergoing a huge modernisation and construction boom. That coincided with the rise in US investment and a rise in tourist numbers arriving in Thailand. A chunk of those tourist numbers were US military on rest and recuperation from their duties in the Vietnam War. Such numbers of US military around meant a lot of hotels were built in the mid to late 60s around here. It was convenient if you were partying up at the American Strip. That was just up the road. That's the place a lot of stressed out US soldiers were getting their entertainment. Quite a few hotels cottoned onto this and thought, let's keep them in our establishments and open up our own nightclubs.